When I first came across today's guest, I spent about 2 hours binge watching his content, which is exactly what he advises you not to do. However, his content is a really good kind. TJ Power is an author, neuroscientist, and motivational speaker. He has completely blown my mind, and now he's about to blow yours. TJ, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for coming. I'm delighted. Honestly, I'm chuffed that you're here. And
Cool.
it is so true. You completely blew my mind when I first came across you.
Amazing.
So I thought we could start. Perhaps it's easier if you kind of summarize what it is that you do and the dose effect, and perhaps as well how you got into neuroscience.
Yeah, so I run a research lab called Dose Lab, and Dose is this acronym for dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. These four chemicals that live within all of us that have a huge impact on our lives, our performance, relationships, mental health, attention spans. And we basically run studies where we've turned dose into a psychological intervention that people can go through. Dose includes like a number of different habits that you begin to integrate into your life to try and rebalance these brain chemicals. And then we're measuring changes in things like well-being and attention spans and screen times and motivation and things like that. And I then spend my life kind of like talking about these chemicals, both like in these kind of media experiences, but then also a lot in companies and schools. And in terms of what got me into it, I just myself grew up as a massive dopamine addict, as I would describe it, with like cigarettes and smoking, partying and alcohol and all the good stuff. It was a good time. But at about 20 years old, I discovered dopamine for the first time. So the first time I ever even heard that word dopamine, because it's now so famous, dopamine, but it's really new, like us all talking about this chemical. And it gave me some clarity as to kind of like what I was looking for my whole life in that smoking and drinking and partying. Like I discovered there's a natural way to activate this chemical that I'm chasing in quick pleasure. And that had a huge impact on my mental health. And
just discovering what it actually was.
Yeah, just discovering like what it was that I was looking for. Like I was effectively looking for a feeling of reward and excitement and achievement and progress. And all the quick dopamine stuff like artificially gives us a false version. Yeah, and I just discovered that these different artificial things kind of hack that feeling that a lot of us desire to just like make progress and be excited for the life we have. Yeah. And from there, then started kind of lecturing at Exeter University, went into building the whole of Dose Lab, and it's kind of brought me to today.
So did you study it? And because I remember there was a point where I've heard that you were walking around, you went for a walk and perhaps without headphones or something, which is something that I do a lot and I swear by. I feel like it's a really great way to kind of analyze your thoughts. But is that right? You went for a walk and you had a bit of a realization?
Yeah, at the time when I was like 22, really wanted to try and sort things out. Like all my friends were like also living a pretty crazy life, as most people in their 20s do. Yeah. And went and lived at my grandpa's house because I knew I'd like kind of chill out there. He lived out in nature. There was going to be like nothing for me to do. And really wanted to try and sort out my addiction to my phone. That was like one of the pieces of the puzzle that I wanted to solve. So I decided to every morning see if I could go for a walk without my phone at all. And at the time, even as I inhaled there, like it scared me effectively. Like a 60-minute walk in my head without my phone was like terrifying, because like you have to listen to all the shit that's going on in your head. Yeah, exactly. It's so much easier to obviously just not listen to it and just like keep distracting. And in that silence, like I kind of made a lot of discoveries, both about my own life, my own mental health, but also kind of the work I wanted to then do.
Do you feel like from my experience as well, I think there's something really scary with sitting with your thoughts. And I don't know whether, I mean, I know you've done a lot of research about being outdoors and our ancestors and now how we spend so much time indoors. But I think the process of walking outside, there's something safe in that. And like the actual active movement kind of carries your anxiety a little bit. I don't know if you could relate to that.
It does. It's definitely much harder to just like sit on the sofa and look at a wall for an hour than to like walk. Like we spent as human beings like 300,000 years wandering around in that nature. And when our body and brain goes there, like it's effectively the same feeling as when you get home from a long trip and you're like, oh, I'm at home now. That is what our body and brain experiences in nature. It's like coming home and our nervous system settles a lot. And you also have this, you have these two different kind of networks in your brain. One's called the executive network and one's called the default mode network. Okay. Your executive network is like when you're like working or doing tasks or scrolling your phone. When you're like engaged in something, your executive network activates. You then have something called your default network, which when you're kind of daydreaming and you're bored and you're in like a state of imagination, that becomes active. And it's an area that's basically never active for us anymore because we never go towards like daydreaming, boring.
Distracted.
Yeah, because we always want to stimulate, always want to stimulate. out in the nature, the default mode network will really activate because your brain is just moving towards like a more like nice, gentle imagination daydream state. But what's so interesting in research is the more people spend time in the default mode network, in the nature, being bored, the more their brain naturally begins to strategize and dream about how they're going to access their best future.
Yeah.
And people start like really just naturally thinking about it. Like your brain is programmed to do that. Our ancestors' brains would have done the same when they're walking through the woods day in, day out. Their brain would have constantly been thinking, how do I make this future better for me? How do I make it better for me? And a lot of people feel like, oh, I can't seem to like access the like future I really want, like whether it's a certain job, a relationship, where you live, whatever it might be. But it's only in the quiet when you're bored that your brain can actually strategize how you're going to get it.
Well, they always say that boredom is the best thing for creativity. And how do you think that we've managed to get to this point now where I honestly feel as well that so many people are so reluctant to go outside. It's almost like they're scared of it.
Yeah.
When I was young, on the weekends, we were locked outside.
Yeah.
You know, there were no phones, no iPads. It was like, guys, go play,
time.
have a good time. And yeah, we hated it. But Mum always used to say you'll feel better after you spent a few hours outside, which is so true. And I think there's such a miseducation on that in our society at the moment. It feels like an effort, which is perhaps why then also you get a greater reward when you actually do go outside. But why do you think we've got that so wrong?
We're just so overstimulated that it isn't comfortable as your brainwaves change from what you call, like, you have beta brainwaves. These are like fast, quick brainwaves. And like when we're like at home, we're on our phones, we're working, we're on our laptops, like our brain is in this thing called beta brainwave where it's very fast. Okay. When you go out into nature, like your brain will seek towards what's called alpha brainwaves, where your brainwaves just start to like slow down and chill out. And the transfer period isn't actually very comfortable. You actually feel like an anxiety without stimulating your brain. You feel like a nervousness. And I think people just very rarely actually go through the journey. We call it the boredom barrier in our research lab. And it's like 15 minutes or so of walking in nature and your brain will cool off from the intensity of the online world. And then it will chill out and it will enjoy that place. But I think it's uncomfortable, that period. And I find it uncomfortable. Like, I'm not someone that like naturally would have become like a meditating guy that like goes into nature. Like, I was a super stimulated, like super ADHD type kid my whole life. And out there in the quiet, like, it can slow down. It's so nice when the system slows down. And I think the other thing is our brain has like some kind of truth machine that's trying to tell us what we should do with our life. Like, it's some kind of mechanism that's built into us that's trying to guide us. And if you go into the quiet, the initial period, the truth machine effectively goes, quick, you've got a chance to tell them. And it will tell you things about alcohol or drugs or your phone or like whatever is like not quite aligned in your life, it will tell you. Yeah. And it's really freaking annoying. So it's easier to just never go there, never hear that feeling, so you can just like stay in the current paradigm that you're in.
And now, having learnt that and learnt the positive effects of then spending time outside, do you find that process easier of knowing
so
that
much
these things are better for you?
Yeah, I think when we like begin to really focus on the outcome of any behavior that we're trying to engage with, you start to be really motivated to do it. Like, I basically think laziness in general, to do any activity, say you want to like eat better or you want to start exercising more, you want to clean a house, you want to work on a project, laziness is effectively focusing too much on the effort involved with the task and not enough on the outcome. Yeah. And when I go for the walk at like 4 or 5 p.m, I think, I should probably go for one of those walks, but I'm like super stimulated from smashing my computer all day and I don't want to go for the walk. I want to just lie in my bed and like watch YouTube videos, but I just have to keep reminding myself like, oh, this evening will be so nice, like if I've done that walk. And now, because I've obviously done it lots of times, it's quite easy to convince myself of that reality. Well,
I think that's the same with anything, is when you've done something, sometimes we're so nervous of doing things because we're worried about how they'll make us feel. And especially if we've had a bad experience with that, you know, like, don't touch that pan because it's hot. Yeah. Don't touch it again and again. Yeah. Actually, when you do this one very small thing and you realise how good it makes you feel, it's then so much easier to do any task that requires effort.
Definitely. Begins to reinforce itself.
Completely. So on to kind of DOSE and what that stands for. Could you start kind of explaining, what it stands for? Yeah,
so we've got the D is dopamine. Yeah. It's like our motivation chemical, gets us to get up in the morning and do anything in our life that is hard. Dopamine is responsible. Okay. Oxytocin is our connection chemical. It's like the biochemical reason that we can experience like love and connection with people, connection with yourself. Serotonin is our like mood chemical that enables your mood to hopefully stay quite stable, but often for a lot of us we're very low in serotonin, especially in the UK, and that then creates like challenges with like irritability and anxiety if it's not stable. Okay. And then endorphins is this chemical that basically de-stresses us. Like, if you get like really like frustrated and pissed off and stressed out by work, endorphins is this magical chemical that can calm that feeling down.
And that will come through exercise and things.
Yeah, that'll come through like physically moving our body in like a difficult level.
Okay, so starting with dopamine, is dopamine the anticipation of something? Is that right?
Yeah, it's coming to be understood as that. Like for a lot of the time in neuroscientific research, it was considered like this purely a reward chemical. Like if you did something, you then got a dopamine hit. But they're seeing in research that like the anticipation of what might be also will increase your dopamine. So like spending some time like on a walk, like really dreaming about like this future that you really want, like a traveling trip you want to go on, a relationship you want to have, whatever
It's
it might be.
exciting.
Dreaming of it, like that motion of excitement, that will also generate dopamine. Obviously you have to take action on the goal to then like fulfill the dopamine. You can't just spend your life dreaming, but it's important to get that state.
And would you then, if you were to then take action on it, would you then move through a process moving into oxytocin? Is that kind of right? Or are they all slightly separate?
Yeah, they can interconnect in different ways, these chemicals. There are certain activities that will boost both of them. But when you're looking at more the pursuit of a goal, dreaming of a goal, trying to acquire a goal, that would live more inside the dopamine world.
And is there, you said earlier, alluded to the fact that you were a dopamine addict, which I expect most of us are. Is that right?
Well, I mean, it's very rare if you're not.
Yeah, well, completely. And is there a difference between good and bad dopamine? Okay, and can you give me an example of both of those things?
Good and bad dopamine is basically just how quickly does your brain generate the dopamine. And it could be like split between slow and quick dopamine as the same as good and bad dopamine. So like slow dopamine, a very simple example is when you clean your house. Like it's not like a fun, like, wow, now I'm cleaning my house, I feel freaking amazing.
Yeah.
But when you've cleaned your house, like it does feel good. You're like,
That's
oh no,
great.
my bathroom's nice, my lounge is nice, whatever it might be. You get this nice rewarding experience. And dopamine is designed evolutionarily to generate slowly in our brain. Like our ancestors for 300,000 years couldn't access what we would call quick dopamine. They were starting fires, building shelters, hunting, foraging. None of those things immediately make you feel good. They make you feel good gradually.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, and
so it's like actually in our DNA to...
It's in our DNA to slowly earn reward. And whatever created us as a species, you could call it God, you could say like nature, evolution, whatever it might be, something had to program into us the importance of earning reward so that we would bother to scratch rocks together for 5 hours and make a fire. Because if we didn't like the experience of slowly earning reward, like humans just wouldn't be here because it's so hard to survive. Well, it was really hard to survive. Now it's obviously a lot easier. And then you have quick dopamine, which would be generating dopamine rapidly without any effort. And if, for example, like you get home from work and you go on your TikTok feed, you'll notice that you feel really good really quickly. It's like, oh, that video is so good. It's so aligned to my interests. Like, oh my God, I can't believe how good it is. You feel really good, really, really good. And then eventually you think, oh, I should probably put my phone down. Then you have a whole battle with yourself as to whether you're even going to do that because it's so hard to like pull yourself back out of it because your dopamine is just surging like crazy. Eventually, though, you pull yourself out of it, like you could go make dinner or whatever it might be. And you'll notice you get this sudden like dip. You suddenly feel like a bit shit. Like your mood kind of crashes. You can't really be bothered to do anything. You can't even be bothered to make dinner. And that's because dopamine has generated too quickly in your brain. Your brain has used up all of the dopamine it had in there in order to get you to experience that high from the social media video, for example. And then it runs out. And then you go into this low dopamine state.
So it's basically anything that hasn't required effort. As well. So if you put effort into something, it's good dopamine.
Yeah, if something makes you feel really good, but you didn't earn it, that's effectively going to break your dopamine system. And that could be like alcohol. Like we all know alcohol is obviously really fun when you drink it, but then you feel pretty shit after it. It could be, for example, the difference between like having sex with someone you love compared to watching porn. Like when you have sex with someone you love or you like, there's a certain level of effort involved to make that a beautiful experience. When you watch porn, there's obviously zero effort. It's just like, I'm horny, watch porn, then you crash out afterwards. So there's just that different experience that you have to try and observe in your brain of like, am I slowly feeling good doing this activity or am I rapidly feeling good and then feeling shit after?
And I remember I listened somewhere and you were explaining, I think, along the lines of the perfect day and saying something as simple as making your bed, because it requires a bit of effort, but it's not too much. I mean, most people can really get to a stage where they make their bed. But doing that first thing is just like a great way to set yourself up. And I think you spoke about creating dopamine bubbles and then them popping.
Yeah, interesting.
I don't know, something along those lines.
You have this area of your brain called the ventral tegmental area, which is like this little ball deep in the center of your brain. And it's effectively a dopamine factory. And it can build what we'd call dopamine vesicles, which are dopamine bubbles, little dopamine bubbles. They get generated in there. And you then have something called your nucleus accumbens, which is just like your reward center that makes you feel happy and good. And when, for example, you wake up in the morning and you have to like clean your bedroom, make your bed, just like get ready for your day, brush your teeth, all these like boring, effortful things. Your brain generates some of these bubbles in the factory, and then occasionally we'll ship some of these bubbles to the reward center, and you'll be like, oh, it's kind of good that I made my bed. But it's not like, oh my fucking God, I made my bed. But it's like, oh, nice, that feels nice. When you go on the social media feed, the booze, whatever it might be, sugar, effectively what your brain does is it mass ships these bubbles to the reward center rapidly. So they just all get sent there because your brain's like, wow, this is novel and stimulating and pleasurable. And that would effectively be the bursting of these bubbles. It would use up a huge amount of them. So if someone, for example, was to wake up in the morning, they'd have some of these bubbles sitting in their factory from the sleep. Sleep has like a regenerative process for our dopamines, give you motivation when you wake up. And then you go like, you'd have two different pathways. One would be you wake up, you go and like brush your teeth, you make your bed, you like have your shower, and you like begin your day. The other would be you like lie in bed and you scroll your phone for a bit. You check your WhatsApp, your email, your Instagram quickly. And the two paths are so different because one, like the path is just generating loads of these dopamine bubbles in the factory to give you an abundance of motivation throughout the day. And the second path uses them all up from the get-go. And then you still will have some dopamines. You can still move your body and like do something. But your whole day feels like this like annoying uphill battle if you've used up your dopamine first thing.
That's so interesting. So actually it's so integral that you get your first half an hour or your first hour right.
I mean, there's literally nothing more important than
Really?
that. Yeah, because you really like to have a good day. You need to just do something with your day. You don't have to like work really hard on your computer, but you need to just like do something to experience reward and love. And like, you can't just spend a day on your phone because it makes you feel so shit. Because our brain is programmed that if we do nothing, it will try and make us feel like shit to try and tell us to not do that anymore. Like if, for example, a hunter-gatherer sat around in the tribe and was like, you guys go off, you do all the hunting and food and building and fires, I'm just going to sit here and do nothing.
Yeah.
The brain would literally make them depressed because it would be like, no, you're going to have, you can experience depression then if you're not going to contribute to this group. And that's why it's so important that we wake up and we actually just like do something with our day.
I mean, off the back of that, I was saying earlier, I have two close family members in my life. They're both male. And I think when they both hit a wall like a block, they act in really different ways.
Okay.
One of them is very get up and go, let's problem solve, maybe talk about it a bit and then puts action in place. So they say he's feeling, I don't know, unfit or bad about himself. He'll go for a run and then he'll start to change his food habits and those kind of things. Yeah. The other finds it much easier to go to the pub and drink his sorrows and cloud all of those feelings with, I don't know, socializing, all of these kind of things. And then wakes up 2 weeks later, gives me a call and says, okay, what's going on? This is how I feel. And can you kind of explain like why it's perhaps easier for some people to go backwards and other people to just, I don't know.
Yeah, like people will have naturally different what's called dopamine baselines. So if someone like had quite like a naturally high dopamine baseline, the first brother, for example, it's slightly easier for him to make like a good decision. Like he might be a little bit more motivated and then he'll think, oh, okay, I'll try the run or the food or whatever to try and heal this like stress I'm navigating.
Okay.
If your dopamine level is slightly lower naturally, which can happen, like everyone's
born like that.
You can be born with slightly lower dopamine naturally.
Oh, okay.
And individuals with ADHD, for example, are born with slightly lower dopamine levels naturally. That's why things like Ritalin and Adderall and Elvance and stuff have been treating because they're dopamine-based medications to try and stabilize that level. And if you have a slightly lower level, it's a bigger ask in your brain to go for the run or eat the food. It's like, oh, that's a big mountain to climb. And obviously there is no mountain to climb if you go to the pub. Like it's like a very easy path to choose.
Yeah.
But that being said, your baseline, regardless of your genetics, is constantly changing dependent on the behaviors you engage with. So when I was at university and I was like smashing the like partying, my baseline would have been extremely low. So then if someone had said to me, go for a run and like eat some healthy food, I'd have said no, because I can't be bothered because my dopamine was so low. Then over the years of choosing the harder path, from when I wake up and make my bed and clean my house and work harder and go into the nature, your baseline starts to naturally generate more and more dopamine.
Oh, wow.
So your first brother, naturally, because of the lifestyle he's living, he's generating more dopamine, and the second brother might be generating slightly less, which is like, it's not a problem, but it's just the goal would be, how can he live a lifestyle from literally right now that would engage more effort so the dopamine would produce more, with as simple as like eating your lunch in silence instead of a screen the whole time. That would just like raise your dopamine ever so slightly because you wouldn't be breaking this pathway. There's like tiny micro decisions you could make. Gradually dopamine would generate more. Then you hit a moment where life is hard. Because you've got more dopamine in your brain, it's like, oh, I'm going to choose the more difficult path because I know it'll heal me.
I think that's why I binge your content for a couple of hours, is it felt like such a simple recipe for a world that feels so complicated. And what you've just said is it is a combination of micro decisions, you know, not going on your phone first thing in the morning. I don't know if you could name like a couple of others, but just that's what I really wanted people to hear, is that it's not hard. It's just can be a couple of small things. You don't have to change the world overnight.
Definitely. You don't have to change the world overnight. It's like a nice, slow, gradual progress that can be so enjoyable. Like, it can become the new dopamine high that you've been looking for in the alcohol and the partying and stuff. The new dopamine.
As well.
And it can feel so good. Like, I feel good as I chase this new life now. And yeah, the way in which you treat your home environment is like step one. It's really significant. Like, just like how organized and clean do you keep your home, dishwashers, like sinks, kitchens, like all of that just makes a huge difference. It's all boring, but it all just makes a huge difference to your baseline production. Well. Yeah, just like feeling proud of yourself. Like the emotion of pride or guilt is basically slow dopamine or quick dopamine. Like when you
so interesting.
Yeah, when you feel proud of yourself from like going to the gym for a workout or like doing anything at all that makes you feel proud of yourself, you've probably naturally generated dopamine somehow.
Okay.
Whereas guilt is like a really useful emotion that our body has created to try and say do less of that. Like, especially for men, like when you watch porn, like it's great in the experience when you watch porn, but this weird guilt feeling like runs through you after you've watched it because your brain's like, oh, maybe don't do that. Like, we know that's not good for us. And yeah, so how you treat your home environment is really key. When you wake up in the morning, doing anything that you would consider effort, the best thing you could possibly do would be turn your shower cold at the end of your shower, just because it's hell.
Wim Hof.
And like, yeah, do that Wim Hof stuff. That would be extremely good. Reading books would be like revolutionary for your dopamine level. And obviously like reading is freaking boring now compared to scrolling our phone. And I don't think people need to read like educational books. Like I'm reading, for example, like there's like a new Dan Brown book at the moment, that guy that wrote Da Vinci Code. He has a new one called Secrets. And that's so entertaining to my brain. Like if you just give it a second, like if you just read for like 5 minutes, put your phone in another room and just like start reading, eventually you will get into it. Like we all learned to read as kids, like we can still read books. Reading would be so good because it's just earning reward, and that's the path you want to go. And then the like super key is like getting outdoors for some kind of physical movement. And if you're in London,
game changer.
Yeah, it has to happen. And if you're in London, like obviously there's all these like run clubs could be good. It could just be like going to things like Richmond Park on the weekend. And if in winter you think, oh, it's cold and grey outside, like I'm just gonna give up on all that like movement outdoor thing, you just will get depressed. Like it's just like an inevitability because the brain doesn't want a life where it just lives inside and does nothing. And it's really important. It's just like, okay, it's winter, but like it's Sunday morning, I'm gonna put like a jacket on, I'm gonna walk far, I'm gonna go for a coffee with my friends, and I'm just gonna like try and like move myself outside as much as possible so that I've earned that feeling of sitting down and chilling on the weekend.
Then you feel great about sitting on the sofa.
Yeah, then it feels
you don't feel
great.
like a slob. You're like a happy slob.
And it's just so important to see all your emotions as literally like a emotional guidance system.
Yeah.
And if it's saying I feel like a slob, it's because you are a slob, and like it's like really useful, that piece of
rather
advice.
than like I earned to sit down
and sometimes like you sit down, you watch a movie and think, fuck yeah, like this feels good, like I deserve this movie. And when you're watching that movie, put the phone in another room again. Like watching movies and Netflix and long form YouTube videos and podcasts, all of that stuff's not bad for us at all.
Okay.
It's only watching short videos that's breaking up
this
dopamine.
Fast thing. And have you found a difference between, I guess, well, now also being with someone, but a difference between men and women and how we respond to these situations?
Yeah, definitely. I think women have a significant extra difficulty of their cycle influencing their brain chemistry. Because there'll be periods like in the center of your cycle where your dopamine is naturally higher. And at the beginning and end, the dopamine will drop, which will make it much more tricky to like make smart decisions with food and phones and stuff. So like I empathize that that's like not something that men have to navigate. But by and large, it's pretty similar. Women like slightly look for oxytocin more, and if oxytocin isn't fulfilled for a woman, she'll be much more anxious.
So that's that feeling of like comfort and love and trust and all of that?
Yeah, like it's a really important emotion for both men and women. But for women, low oxytocin levels is very, very tough. And we are like in like a low oxytocin epidemic effectively as a species, because we're so obsessed with dopamine that we're sacrificing oxytocin in the pursuit of it. And like, for example, if me and my partner for a period of time like started we got really into like reading Twitter for some reason. That was like a thing we started enjoying. This was last summer, and like there were just different like scientists we follow, philosophy people, like business people, and we just like started liking reading it. And that was fun at first, and I'd always take my iPad into bed with us and we'd like read Twitter for a while, then watch some YouTube videos. Over time, though, we were just getting addicted to just like going on these feeds and consuming them. In that moment, we're then like effectively choosing dopamine in an iPad instead of oxytocin of interacting with each other.
Okay.
And that is now happening all the time for people with their families, their kids, their siblings, their friends. It's like they sit in environments where they could access oxytocin, but they choose dopamine because they want quick pleasure over like a slower, more loving reward. And when our oxytocin levels are low, like for our ancestors, if your oxytocin was low, it meant you were disconnected from the tribe. And if you were disconnected from the tribe, you had a really high like chance of dying effectively, because we
need each other.
Yeah, you can't survive like in the animal kingdom on your own as a human being. You really need a group around you. And whilst we obviously don't face that now, as our oxytocin level drops from a lack of connection, lack of like intimacy, like in friendships and in romantic intimacy, then your body like starts getting this like fearful nervousness, unconfidence, and it's a state that like lots of us have now.
Do you think as well that's because of, this has just come to my mind, but because of communication and dopamine, short release dopamine is often like it overrides communication. You know, all of these kids now are learning at school on their phones and all of these types of things. And actually oxytocin, from what you just said, sounds like a lot of communication and talking and opening up to each other and improving.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether there is a link between all of that and now we're incapable at the low oxytocin levels now. It's because we actually don't know how to communicate in the same way as we did before.
Yeah. The communication like that is right at the core of it. And I always like chatting to taxi drivers, like Ubers. I always will ask them like how their days go and chat to them. And when I have longer journeys to like airports and stuff, I'll often have really interesting discussions because taxi drivers always have an interesting perspective of society because they talk to every part of society all day, every day.
Yeah.
And interestingly, like in a cab last week to London, this taxi driver was sharing like how he's seeing such a generational difference in like teenagers now being able to communicate with him versus how they used to be able to communicate with him just a few years ago, because there is like a lack of prioritization of communication. And it's in proper conversation that you generate oxytocin. It's not in like, hey, how are you? Like, see you later. It's in like where you really talk. Yeah, proper DMCs. Well, I haven't heard that phrase for a while. It's in DMCs. That's when oxytocin will generate. And my partner and I constantly do like experiments, like for like 7 days, we'll try something out to see if it will impact how we feel. Partly because this is our like work and life running Dose Lab. We need to come up with ideas.
Understanding each other.
But there's just this double win because every time we do one of these experiments, like it'll just like improve our connection or our mental health or whatever it might be. And we did 4 weeks recently without a TV. Like we carried the TV out of our lounge. Not because everyone needs to quit TV, like TV's not even that bad, but we just wanted to see like what would actually happen if we just didn't have the TV every night for a month. And we committed to like not then spend our time like watching videos on our phones. It was basically consume no content at all in the evenings for a month.
Okay.
And you almost like thinking in your head, like, what the hell are we actually going to do? Like 3-4 hours every evening, like run out of conversation. And it was so interesting because when you first fall in love with someone, there's like this really magical like first few months, like that honeymoon period where you lie in bed and you like get to know each other and you chat about everything and it's so fun.
Yeah.
And then it just sort of fades off. And then before you know it, like you're both just nailing TikTok in bed next to each other and that part of your initial relationship was lost. And because we had nothing to do, by like 8:30, after like 2.5 hours of doing nothing, going for walks, eating dinner, like we played like Uno and like just tried to entertain ourselves, we'd just get into bed because it'd be like, oh, let's just go to bed. Then it's like 8:30, I can't fall asleep at 8:30. So then you start talking and you actually, similar to like how you get comfortable with the boredom out in the nature if you walk for long enough, you just start to like really be happy to just chat. And like normally when we start chatting, we're like, oh, I chat for a bit and then I'll go on my phone and like stimulate myself. And there's like these magical conversations that come that like are things you never even knew about each other or like perspectives you had or ideas you want to create or dreams about your future. And I think so much of the time with oxytocin, we're just not letting conversation reach the point of when it feels like deeply loving and fulfilling because we're stuck in this like surface level oxytocin with our addiction to dopamine.
So actually just off the back of that, I was going to ask you, do you feel like you're able to practice what you preach?
Yeah.
Because for you, you've come up with this formula and this way of living as well. And I also can imagine you've had a sudden growth on social media and that must give you false dopamine hits too, of course. It's like, woo, everyone's, following after me. And it's like, how do you then manage that and really bat that off and implement it into your life? And do you find that hard as well?
Very hard.
Yeah.
It's the process of experiencing like being a creator on social media has almost elevated my capacity to learn to manage it because it's extra difficult, because it does like it really taps into like your ego and how you think about yourself, like big views and likes, and then suddenly a dip in the views and likes and you're like, oh, I'm shit. And then and it's been really interesting. And like I have this really specific process called social media moments that I consistently will share with people online and in my book and stuff, which will be that you should only go on Instagram or whatever your addictive app is 3 times a day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. and not outside of that. And it's a very, like, it might be like, wow, how could I possibly do that? But if Instagram is open on your phone, by open I mean like if it's not blocked by an app, like we built this app that will block Instagram, so that when you click it, like nothing will happen and you like can't get in. Not like or remind me later, like an Apple thing,
right?
Like it actually just won't let you in until 10 o'clock. And I only had to build this 10-3-8 thing because I was so addicted to like checking what was going on with my own social media.
Yeah.
And in the process of just experimenting with, okay, I'll not check until 10 and then I'll check again at 3. I then just discovered my mental health was improving so much, not by just not checking my social media, but by just not going on Instagram all the time and consuming content. And we really underestimate, like, every few minutes, like when we're working, when we go to the bathroom, when we're eating food, we just keep clicking those apps, keep clicking them. And with each check, you just burn a little bit more of your dopamine out, a little bit more. And I have managed to reach a point where I do actually like live this lifestyle I'm suggesting. Like I really believe in it, and also do it not because I feel like, oh, I have to do this because I have to like fulfill what I'm suggesting. I would just feel like shit if I don't do it.
Yeah.
And like I really don't like feeling like shit. I find it really annoying if I wake up and I'm like depressed vibes, like worried about stuff.
Yeah, it's
anxious.
not fun.
I just hate that. It's just super annoying. And the only way for me to be excited about my life and feel chilled out and just like confident and have fun and have energy is to like take the relationship with the phone pretty seriously. Like it's just super important.
And do you feel like, for me, certainly, I've just been in a relationship now for the last year and a half, having been single for so long.
Okay.
And I feel there were so many things I didn't realize about myself when I was single. Maybe when I would get irritable, or perhaps the time that I would spend doing other things.
Mm-hmm.
And you've just spoken about the fact that you had a bit of a realization of like, God, I actually have to implement this into my life, in order to manage it. Is that something that you understood more from being in a relationship because you realized that you weren't so present in the relationship, or were you able to come to that conclusion by yourself?
No, that wasn't a new thing from the relationship. Lots of things have been new from the relationship.
Yeah.
Like I've definitely made huge changes with like food and presents and things like that. My partner's like super into the food stuff, so we've gone really deep down that world. But the phone, I was just already noticing like this almost just like depression feeling. It's such a dramatic word, but I just would feel like, oh,
it's
like,
looming. It gives you a headache sometimes.
Yeah, and
like,
I'd just be
so
like
late.
annoyed that feeling. And then like obviously it would go if I was in Instagram scrolling the content. But then when I come out of Instagram, I'd be like, I feel kind of shit now. And yeah, I just tired of that feeling and was like, right, I got to build a rule set that means like I go on Instagram a certain amount of time each day in order to break it.
And just going back to the whole food thing, obviously that's kind of my career is, I'm a big foodie.
Yeah.
I was wondering kind of the research that you've done, and being with, is your partner a nutritionist?
Yeah,
is that right?
she's a clinical nutritionist.
Yeah, so how have you found that food impacts? There is so much misunderstanding, and that's that common phrase of you are what you eat when you're young.
Yeah.
But that's so overlooked, and it is so true.
Yeah, I mean, my partner's super passionate specifically about this whole ultra processed food thing, which is obviously a huge term now.
Packaged items. Basically.
Yeah, just like anything with loads of ingredients in. And as a person with an addictive personality, like I have found her approach very interesting, because she too really struggles with like, if she opens the door to crap food, it's very hard to shut the door again.
And sugar's addictive.
Yeah,
it's actually like
deeply
in
addictive.
Our DNA to be addicted to sugar.
It's deeply addictive sugar. And then ultra processed food is super fascinating. And by ultra processed food, I don't even just mean like McDonald's and stuff like that. Even like yogurts now have a huge amount of ultra processed food ingredients. Some don't, some do. And what I came to discover through all her learnings, that she's been studying this for like 6-7 years or something, is that in the 1990s, the tobacco industry was really falling hard with their capacity to generate money because of the change in our understanding of cigarettes. And they bought the entire food industry in the 1990s and then began to change it in order to make it a much more addictive, high profit machine. And Oreos or certain crisps or biscuits that people might have grown up with like 20, 30 years ago are now just a completely different product to what they once were. And they specifically designed food that could edit these two hormones in our gut called ghrelin and leptin. And ghrelin is this hormone that makes you really hungry. And then leptin is this hormone that tells you you're full.
Okay.
And say like I got hungry for lunch and then I like ate some like salmon or something like that, like a natural food. Even salmon is a little bit less natural now, but if I ate any kind of natural food, leptin would kick in and be like, you're full now, like no need to eat any more food. So I always used to do this kind of like balanced approach to my food. And Georgie came in and suggested to me like that it's not possible. And I was like, okay, that's like maybe too strict. Like maybe that's a bit extreme to suggest that's not possible. But then she was just like, why don't we just do it like one of these experiments, like do like a couple weeks where we don't eat a single ultra processed food, but we still work hard to create nice things. Like you can make like an apple crumble that doesn't have any ultra processed foods in, and like you can create nice foods that still taste sweet, just not consuming UPFs.
So true.
And I've had such a huge change in my relationship with food, and like subsequently like how my brain feels, physically how I feel, as a result of just like creating an idea in my mind that those foods can't be consumed at all.
Okay.
And it's really like complicated, that topic, because that could be seen as like extreme like diet culture or something like that. But her take on it would be that it's simply not food.
Yeah.
That food. Like, so it's not that you're like not eating like certain foods. Those just those can't actually be considered food. They're like chemical products. They shouldn't be in our bodies. And for us, for how our brains feel, like just adopting a mentality where we can just only eat food that like nature has created has just been like revolutionary.
Seeing it as like a blessing rather than being like, oh God, I can't have the Snickers bar type thing.
Yeah, and it's just been like, wow, look at all this great stuff we get to eat, and you get creative. There's like dopamine to earn in that labor.
Yeah,
how do we cook good food?
The effort required, it feels
Definitely. Like you can make really cool stuff with natural foods. And like even our grandparents and like their parents before them, they still ate like nice sweet treats occasionally, but they had to make them. They didn't just like get them in like crazy packets full of like 20 extra additives that break your brain chemistry.
That's it.
And yeah, for us, that's made a big difference. We both have like very inattentive, hyperactive brains, and it's just seemed to calm us a lot.
That's so interesting. So you found that it has had a massive impact on you. And now do you strictly cut out anything that's ultra processed?
Yeah, we just don't eat those foods now. And like, it's not even feeling like, oh, it's so strict and like stressful to not have them.
Yeah.
Like we just eat the natural foods. Our gut bacteria and like that whole gut flora thing like craves whatever it has within it. And like, so if there is lots of ultra processed food and therefore the subsequent bacteria that come with it, they say like, give me more of those things. The same thing occurs with alcohol bacteria. And then gradually as those bacteria leave the gut, like your body stops even saying like, please give it to me. Like I used to, in like my journey towards health, I was nailing certain like healthy packets of crisps. I was still eating loads of those, or like a lot of like protein yogurts and stuff that were like technically really bad for you, but they at least say 20 grams of protein on the front.
Yeah.
I was eating a lot of that stuff, and now like I've lost the craving for all that stuff, and I can feel fulfilled with my food through just like cool creative recipes that aren't very complicated. It's not like we've had to become insane chefs to do it.
Yeah. That's what I'm all about. Easy.
Yeah, it needs to be super easy. And I think it's just like with all this stuff, whether it's like the walks or it's cleaning the house or it's the phones or whatever it might be, it's just so good to run the experiment. Like before you like make any opinion on, oh no, that's a certain way, like maybe this is a different opinion. Yeah. I think you just try it for like 7 days. I'll just try. And then like, if it doesn't work for you, then it's not for you.
Well, that's the thing about life is we're always works in progress. And I think there is always so much to learn and to try. And as you've just said, it is just a constant case of, I think we're so scared of failure as well. Yeah. And, you know, that's something that I've seen probably more in my male friends than my female friends. I don't
Interesting.
know. Which, yeah, I don't know.
Maybe that's testosterone's lowering.
Perhaps something, that I'm sure there's some kind of, biology behind that. But yeah, scared of failure, and it takes away from, I don't know, masculinity or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And as a result, we don't try these things. But as you said, everything is just an experiment.
Yeah, and like you got a great system in you that's going to guide you. And some people might be able to completely thrive with like a lot of ultra processed food in their body, and some might not. But it's just so good to just be really open-minded, try things out, and then think, oh, that actually did help, that worked, and listen to whatever your system tells you.
And earlier you kind of spoke a bit about ADHD, and you actually spoke about Elvans, which is a medication that I was on for 3 years.
Oh, cool.
And I've basically just come off it.
Oh, wow, okay.
And yeah, I would love to know your experience with kind of, any advice that you would have to someone with ADHD or a bit about that.
Yeah, I think ADHD is like a fascinating topic. We are seeing it like rising really fast in the world. And I think that's great for people to have like a good understanding of how their brain works. Yeah. And I think there's an element of increased like awareness and understanding and testing, which is super important. Like I think everyone should understand how their brain is. But I also think there is like some modern behaviors that are having an influence on our like intensity of our symptoms effectively. And with that, I think it's just really important to consider deeply understanding your dopamine level, which is exactly what Elvance was attempting to like regulate within you.
Yeah.
And those medications, they can be super powerful for people. They can be literally life-changing. They can completely stabilize someone, get their like attention to work, their motivation to be steady. And then for others, they can not work as well. And I think whether you're pursuing like a medication path, which I'm not qualified at all on, like I'm not a psychiatrist, I don't know how to prescribe medication. But whether you're pursuing that path, continue to listen to them. And then if you are on that path or you're going full natural, regardless, like regulating your dopamine is just super key. And even when you come to like something like food, something like protein in our diet, which breaks down into an amino acid called tyrosine. Tyrosine is like a really key building block of dopamine. And sometimes you see individuals will like pursue like a higher protein diet and they'll see some of their symptoms like be slightly better. Like maybe they feel a bit more motivated or calm or like a bit less like stressed out and fast in their system.
Yeah.
So there's these little tweaks that you could just like be open-minded to trying. And the other thing about ADHD is I think it's really also important to celebrate like what an amazing brain you have if you have an ADHD brain.
Not all the time.
Not all the time. Like it's tough and it will create lots of impulsive difficulty within your life. But when you look at human evolution, we spent about 288,000 years, so their best guess estimates, as these hunter-gatherers, hunting for food, building fires, shelter, and so on. And then 12,000 years ago, to a much more accurate estimate, we invented farming for the first time. And farming was really a huge change for humanity. The reason we've evolved so much in the last 12,000 years is all because of farming, because originally the entire group's role was how do we get food to keep alive, to survive.
Okay.
Whereas suddenly you invent farming and there's this opportunity for a huge percentage of the group to no longer need to spend every day looking for food. And then we went through a huge evolution in terms of building everything we have today because we had so much more time on our hands.
Yeah.
There's an interesting hypothesis that some people in the modern world have now got what we'd call a farmer brain, which is a slower, steadier, calmer brain.
Okay.
And that some people in the world still have this hunter-gatherer brain that is looking for a lot of excitement and quick wins and more of like an ADHD style brain.
Yeah.
And that brain for our ancestors, the people that were super ADHD, would have actually been the brain that really enhanced human evolution. Like the hunter-gatherers with ADHD would have been the most pumped up and excited to hunt and make fires and build shelter. They would have had immense motivation. And it's really hard in the modern world because when you have an ADHD brain now, you can't just do what they did and go and earn reward and keep your dopamine regulated. You're now so much more prone to the sugar and the phones and the porn. Like it's so much harder to manage. The booze is so much harder to manage. So it's important to understand how amazing your brain is at achieving goals if it's targeted in the correct way, but have like a lot of empathy for yourself that is tricky, this world you're now living in.
Well, my brother as well, he was diagnosed from a really young age and my mum went to see a specialist and they didn't really know too much about it, but very early on he was given tasks to do. So there were dots that would appear from a projector on the wall and he'd have to follow those around and his whole diet was changed. No cereal in the morning. This was age, 6.
That's cool.
She'd make
They
him
were
a
doing
full
that
cooked
back.
breakfast. It was amazing. And actually from someone who was actually a complete crazy child, I mean, he'd go missing for like 24 hours. He was wild, like scale buildings. And now he's very calm and very focused.
Wow.
It is amazing to see how those kind of habits have had an effect on him. Whereas for me, I was diagnosed at a much later point and at a point where I was kind of hitting a bit of a crisis and I didn't really have the capacity to implement those habits.
Yeah.
And so medication was this quick fix.
Cool.
Which kind of worked. But equally, like you've just said, there's so much that comes with being on medication. Like it makes you feel quite numb and my creativity really slowed down.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, I don't know. And I don't know whether that everything in terms of like dopamine, I just felt a bit flat. Is that quite normal?
Well, you're trying to regulate it with the medication. And like for some people, if it's like big ups and downs, that might be like a really magical answer for them. And
yeah.
For others, like it might kill a bit of like a spark that they have inside of them that like they want to help return. And it's a tricky one because it's so individualized as to the intensity of someone's experience. But I just think there's definitely zero harm in trying to naturally regulate your dopamine alongside the medication as best you can. Like you could do so much good with it.
I think you should do both.
Yeah,
as well,
you should
it
definitely
sets
do
you
both.
up for coming off it as well.
For sure. Like, and then if you ever wanted to leave, you got all like these tools in place. But I think just thinking that the medication alone will solve the problem forever, like might not work in the long term. And there's also just so much fun in naturally like getting these chemicals going. Like these chemicals want to thrive. Like they're like our friends in our system that are like, please activate me. Like I want to have some fun. And it's worth like figuring out how to pursue that path.
So if you could give someone just generally, like, I guess for anyone listening out there, 3 to 5 top tips or things that you would then implement into your day as like a starter pack for kind of gaining slow release dopamine, what would you say?
Yeah, I would say charge your phone not on your bedside table. So either at
Right.
the other side of your room, like if it needs to be like for an alarm and all those like stories we tell ourselves. And
Just get an old fashioned alarm.
yeah. And then, or ideally charge your phone outside your bedroom. That would be the first one. I would say spend like a minimum of 2 minutes every single day keeping your house tidy. Just 2 minutes, but 2 minutes every single day.
Okay.
So it's like a requirement. I just have to do 2 minutes every single day. Sometimes it'll be more. 2 minutes is good, but definitely never a day without organization in your home.
That's interesting.
I would say to block your social media apps so that you can only go on them a certain frequency per day, because if you go on them all day every day, like, you are just going to really struggle. It's inevitable that you will struggle. So I'd say block them. Like, we have this thing called Roots. It's very good, it's very effective, it's free, and you can like block the apps using that. I would say and arguably the most exciting and important is like trying to find what your flow state is really key. Flow state is like whatever activity gets you most immersed in it. And if you're not sure like what that activity is, the best thing you can actually do is scroll your social media feed during your allotted time that day and look at the most frequently reoccurring videos, because it's very likely that you've started actually watching someone else do your flow state rather than doing it yourself anymore. And if you're
dancing, cooking,
watching loads of dancing
painting,
or cooking or house renovations, as you say, like, you're supposed to do the thing you're watching. That's why you like watching it.
that's really good advice.
And yeah, for me, like, I loved watching these like really aesthetic nature videos of like people like walking along mountains and stuff in the Dolomites and all those things. But I realized like back then that I was just like never actually going into nature. I was just watching videos.
Yeah.
And then like now my flow state lives in like mountains and like climbing and stuff like that. Like, I really like that kind of thing. And if I was thinking one final one, it would be like to really smash the protein in your diet, just to like center every single meal around how am I getting protein in, and then add extra things, fruits, vegetables, whatever you want.
Yeah.
But if you just center your food around protein, you'll see like a big shift in your brain.
That and steamed veg is really overlooked.
Yeah.
We were brought up on steamed
Bang
veg.
the steamed veg.
Yes.
It's like a very
I know.
healthy way to do it.
Every meal.
Maybe I need to be steaming my veg.
Yeah,
It's a good idea.
It keeps all the nutrients in, so
Yeah.
I think it's really good for you. And before we move on to a couple of quick questions to finish, I just wanted to ask: are you excited to be a dad?
I
Of
am.
course, you must be. Are you scared at all?
I have like, natural fears.
Yeah.
Like, how the hell do you like do the dad thing? But I'm
Oh, so
also, I'm buzzing. Like, we
Oh.
really are excited to have a family. We like the idea of building like a big family. And I love the idea of like teaching kids like all this stuff, like my own kids, like teaching them all about like nature and like connection to that world.
And bringing them up in that environment as well.
Yeah, and having like this like joint like connection with my partner of like raising someone.
Yeah.
So I'm buzzing. We don't know if it's a boy or a girl. So like we've got this like anticipation because it feels so different to me. Like the idea of how I would raise a boy and a girl feels like such like different energies. And we're going to like obviously find that out on the day it arrives. So yeah, I'm very excited.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Thanks.
I can't really believe it. Okay, we'll just move on to a couple of quick questions before we finish. So one being food, what would your desert island dish be? It'd probably be different now to what it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, my desert island dish would be... it'd be like a grass-fed ribeye steak, to be very specific.
Yeah, great.
It would be, and then probably like this squash salad that we'll make, and it'll be just like roasted squash, and then
Nice.
it'll be pomegranate seeds, feta, and mint.
Yeah, the best combination.
That thing mixed together literally tastes insane. It tastes like it's like bad for you.
I know,
It's just like
it's
really
sweet.
good for you.
Yeah.
And then maybe some like avocado. I reckon I could probably eat that every day forever.
Sounds delicious. And what did you want to be when you were younger?
I wanted to be a professional golfer.
Cool.
That was my whole life dream for like 8 years.
Really?
I trained really hard for it. I got to like a
long
really
time.
good level. And I really believed I was going to be like an amazing professional
Really?
golfer. And then at like 14 years old, went to my first like gathering at school and drank a bottle of vodka and thought, this is way more fun, and just canned the dream.
And now do you play golf at all?
Yeah, I play some golf now.
Nice.
And I love the idea of like maybe in my 30s and stuff, like maybe playing more
Yeah.
golf. Maybe if my kids end up liking golf, I'll play golf with them.
Yeah, great.
I'll try not to be the dad that lives his dream through the kids. So like, I'll,
Yeah.
I'll be gentle with it. But yeah, it was a big dream. And it's now quite useful because I've had some quite useful meetings on a golf course now, and it's useful that I can play it. So.
Yeah, that's actually very true. Well, it's a nice thing to have back in your life. Do you have a favourite quote or saying?
my dad grew me up every single night with this thing called a night book. He like found out about it like 20 years ago, and it was like this book where we had to like write in and like add little pictures of our dreams of like houses and cars and like anything we wanted. And he used to say to me every single night, we become what we think about. And I would just be like, oh, we become what we think about. And when I was a young kid, I'd be like, so what if I think about a toilet? Does that mean I'm going to be a toilet? When I was like a 4-year-old kid listening to this sentence. But then gradually, like, he really embedded this idea, we become what we think about. And like, it created this idea of like, I need to frequently think about what I want to become, like as a good dad, or like certain things in my work or whatever it might be. And yeah, that sentence has meant a lot.
That's so true. And you can revolve your actions around that.
Yeah.
And advice to your younger self 10 years ago.
I would probably want to tell him that he's got some level of intelligence in his brain, and like to try and realize that's true. Because when I was a kid, like I grew up as the kid in bottom set everything my whole life.
Yes,
like even when I was at like GCSE, it's so funny now that I run this research science lab, because I was in GCSE science, in dual science, in the bottom 6 people that were considered the people that literally couldn't even think. And I grew up till I was like 18 just thinking I was a complete moron.
Yeah.
And then found this topic of psychology and brain chemistry and neuroscience, was like, I like that thing. And then I like managed to find a way to get good at it. But even to this day now, like I struggle to like believe I've got any intellect, because I was so programmed.
Even though everyone tells you.
It's very strange. Like I just have felt dumb my whole life, and I'd love to be able to go back and tell the kid, like, you got something in your brain, like have some belief. But
I think that keeps you humble in many ways. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, like I don't think I'll ever believe I'm like some like intellectual person, but I just was so unconfident as a kid. Like teachers, at least back then, certain teachers that made me feel really not great.
Yeah, it's not good how they do that to kids at school.
Yeah, it was really frustrating, and I just feel like maybe like I could have made even more progress if I had some more belief when I was young, but I've now built some belief as like in my late 20s.
Yeah, well, it's never too late, and I think you're a good product of that. Definitely. What's your proudest achievement?
Meeting my partner Georgia by a mile. That means much more to me than any of the work.
Yeah, like it's better than anything.
I dreamed a lot as like a teenage boy, like how can I one day like meet a beautiful woman that's like loving and I could build a life with. That was definitely my biggest goal, and I thought I'd be waiting for like a long time to maybe like my later 30s to try and find like a girl that like I'd love, and yeah, I'm very grateful she came now.
Did you guys meet online?
Yeah, we met on Instagram.
Did you? Did you slide into her DMs?
That's how she would tell the story, yeah. But she shared my post to her story a few times, and then I said thank you for sharing them.
Nice.
So she kind of technically began, but then yes, I said.
And then you flew to Australia.
I flew to Australia about 5 weeks after meeting her on Instagram to risk a date for 5 days.
So worth it.
And yeah, I mean, that's definitely the best decision I've ever made. It seemed crazy at the time. My parents were like, what? You're going to fly to Australia for 5 days? And I was like, yeah, she might be the girl. And she is. So
that's so true. When you know, you know.
Yeah.
And do you have a role model? Or perhaps not, I don't know.
I'm a role model. I've always, throughout my life, had like male role models. As a young kid, like I was obsessed with Tiger Woods, which is like, he was a great role model when I was obsessed with golf. And then I remember thinking like Zac Efron was super cool when I was like watching High School Musical. I thought that guy, he's not my next role model. Then I remember like Tom Daley being like this diver and thinking like, wow, he's now this like figure. And I'd try and like see like men that were like young that I would be like, oh, maybe I could emulate them. And then I'd say one of my biggest role models today is Jay Shetty. Jay Shetty
he's calm legend.
He's an amazing guy, and he has so much love to give. And I met him 3 or 4 years ago, shared some of my content, and he obviously has a lot of people looking for guidance from him, and he's been so loving to me, and he's such a beautiful, humble, like giving human. So I'd say like nowadays probably him.
That's amazing. Well, it also then makes you realise the person that you want to be as well. I think there's so much to be said about being at the top and also giving back to everyone who's helped you get there.
Yeah, I've just been like really inspired by him, and I look forward to the day maybe later in my career where like a young guy maybe like doesn't have any followers but like has some dream in that world, and like I could do the same for him.
That's so nice. It will happen. TJ, that's everything. Thank you so much. Honestly, that was fascinating. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
No, oh my God, thanks for coming. I'm so delighted. It was so interesting. I've learned so much as well. Do you feel like every time that you do one of these that you pick up on something new, or is it?
You said that the most important thing for oxytocin is communication, and whilst I of course know that to be true. I have never framed it in that way. And,
Really?
I'm currently writing my second book, and it's going deep into that world. So
Oh, great.
thanks for that idea.
Not at all. Not at all. Thank you. It's really cool. Well, I really appreciate you coming.
Thanks.
No, it's great.